In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Marianne's guests are leaders in their field, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in their own work. They teach others to develop, refocus, and grow. Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. And remember, make every moment count.
Welcome to Moments with Marianne. Today, my very special guest is Laura Doyle. She's the author of First Kill All the Marriage Counselors. So, welcome to the show, Laura.
Thanks, Marianne. Great to be here.
Oh, it's fabulous. So, I got a hold of your book, and it's a paradigm shifter here because it does, it has a new way of thinking that people, I'm sure, are embracing. It looks like you have quite a community.
Yeah, it is a new way of thinking. It sure was a paradigm shifter for me when I first was in a struggling marriage and thinking I needed to get divorced and going to marriage counseling, reading all the books I could find, and not finding any success with being able to turn that situation around. These are all the things that really blew my mind. It made me look at the world differently, kind of challenged my belief system. And that was, 17 years ago, and I've never looked back because it's been the best self-improvement program I ever undertook, was trying to save my marriage, make it playful, and I just couldn't be more grateful for the whole journey.
Oh, my goodness. Well, and, and from your book, I know that it really was kind of at this point where it was kind of a make it or break it kind of thing. There's very well-intended people. They just weren't helpful. But yeah, I mean, to go on this journey to find, hey, what works for me? I mean, what a pioneer you are.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it really was quite shocking because I think, a big part of the reason marriage counseling didn't work is because I was going there really as a hypocrite, because I thought, well, if the counselor could just fix my husband, I know that he's the problem, and then I could finally be happy if he would, if she could just get him to be more tidy and more ambitious and more romantic and all these things that I wanted. And, of course, that's not how it works. The only person we can control is ourselves. But I was kind of going to marriage counseling as the dutiful wife who was there to be supportive while she fixed him. And there was a point there where she said, gosh, Laura, I think actually you're a little controlling. I was like, what do you mean? I have no idea what you're talking about. Because I knew that I was helpful and efficient, and I always thought that's what I was doing when I bring my husband helpful advice on various things that I thought he needed them about, like how, what to wear and how to drive and what to eat for lunch. And of course, he took all that as criticism, because helpful in wife language is actually critical in husband language. And he had withdrawn, and there was just wall-to-wall hostility at our house. And because to the point where he was more interested in watching reruns on TV than he was in spending time with me or even making love to me. So it was super painful.
Yeah, and that really is kind of a journey. I think a lot of people feel that, they really can relate with you, and that's probably why your book has been so popular, because, relationships do get to a point where things are kind of in this stuck mode, and it's like, okay, so what do we do now? And sometimes it feels like it's just in a place where there might not be any return,
Yeah, I absolutely felt that way. I think, and marriage counseling actually did make me feel more hopeless than ever because, well, first of all, I don't think any couple ever got happier by focusing on complaining about each other for an hour a week or focusing on what's wrong. And then the other thing that I wasn't aware of at the time, but I'm really acutely aware of now, is that going to a marriage counselor and telling her what's wrong with your relationship in front of your husband is actually a terrible setup, because respect is like oxygen for men, and when you're there saying, well, I don't feel like I can trust him, or he's just kind of lazy, or he's not reliable, or he always loses his temper, or whatever it is, it's actually incredibly disrespectful to them. So you're actually digging your hole deeper by doing that. And so people are always saying, well, but how do you get the problems on the table then? You've got to be able to be honest and talk about what's bothering you. But what I've since discovered is that what I focus on increases, and I would rather set an intention to have I call it a spouse-fulfilling prophecy that serves me well, instead of focusing on the things that don't serve me about my husband. And that's really a fun process. The spouse-fulfilling prophecy. That's something my clients and a lot of my clients have used to great effect. And I'll give you an example of it. Was one of the things I used to do was complain that he didn't make enough money, or I started out just encouraging him. I'm like, maybe you could ask for a raise, or maybe you could try to make a little more money. But the subtext of that is you're not making enough money. And so I kept on with that until we got to the point where he wasn't making any money. He'd quit his job, and so then I was the sole breadwinner. I was incredibly resentful about that, and it was all kind of a result of this spouse-fulfilling prophecy that I had, because what happened was I actually heard Lee Miltier talking about this, where she had a course on the power of auto-suggestion, which is where you affirm to yourself, oh, I ran a marathon, or I started a successful business, or I lost 20 pounds, or whatever it is. And this woman went to her course and realized that she had been affirming to her husband that he lost his temper a lot. Like, he'd lose his temper, and she'd go, oh, that's just like you. You always lose your temper. And so she heard Lee Miltier's class, went home, and said, hey, I'm gonna change this up. I don't think this is serving me. Nobody always loses their temper, right? That can't be true. That's an exaggeration. So she said, I'm just going to exaggerate in the other direction. And she waited for him to lose his temper, and she didn't have to wait very long. And when he did, she said, that's not like you to lose your temper. And their 12-year-old son said, yes, it is, Mom. He always loses his temper. Because what had he been listening to, right? But his mom's affirmation. But she stuck to her guns. He kind of looked at her strange, like, what's going on? But she stuck to her guns, and it was a short time later, actually, they were at a restaurant where the service was slow, and he started to fume and say, I've got a good mind to call the manager over here and tell him how long we've been waiting. And then he stopped himself and said, he looked at her, he said, that's not like me to lose my temper, is it? So it's kind of it was a powerful lesson in that people are really living up to our expectations. So I took this information. I thought, well, I've been affirming the wrong thing about my husband with what his earnings are. So I went home and I decided I was going to start telling him that he was a good provider, and then just for fun, I also decided to start calling him Mr. Moneybags. And around that time, he started his own business, and he's had it for, I don't know, like 15 years now. But it's enormously successful. He's more successful than he ever was at any job, and he's happier with it. He does very well. And so it was not a stretch after a while to say you're a good provider. And to this day, I still call him Mr. Moneybags. So it's really been so much more effective to focus on what I want instead of what I don't want.
Well, and and there's a lot to be said about bringing exactly like what you said, is bringing what you want into your life. So if you're putting people down, and it's not I don't mean that in a bad way, but if you're not bringing them up to a certain level and praising them all the time, then they will live up to that. And how you made that shift and said, hey, Mr. Moneybags, and he's living up to that.
Exactly. It's almost like I think husbands kind of look into their wife mirror and see a reflection of themselves, and we just have tremendous influence and power there that I had no concept of. I just was mimicking what I'd seen my parents do, and they are divorced, so I was following a failed recipe from the beginning, and not really realizing it, not being very conscious about it. And it was interesting how just a few tweaks that I learned from women who actually had successful marriages, long, happy marriages, made all the difference. So it wasn't the traditional marriage counseling that did it. In fact, that made things worse. But just the way you wouldn't want a personal trainer who's got a spare tire, or you don't want your financial planner to be on the verge of bankruptcy, right? You want to take the information from people that have the transformation that you want. So, I mean, that's people say, what do you have against marriage counselors? And it really is, it's divorce that I'm against. And unfortunately, I think most people don't realize that 75% of people who got traditional behavioral marriage counseling are separated within a year. So those aren't very good statistics.
Those are pretty high statistics, actually.
Pretty dismal statistics. Yeah. It's like, imagine if an airline had those kind of statistics. Like 75% of the time, it doesn't arrive at the destination, or right?
People would start walking.
Nobody would take them. Yeah, you'd start walking. Exactly. Yeah. Anything would be better. Greyhound bus would be better, right? Like, not that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and then I can understand why you named your book "First Kill All the Marriage Counselors," and it's just it sounds like it's because of that struggle that you went through.
I stole it from Shakespeare. He said, "First kill all the lawyers," but that's only because there were no marriage counselors in his day. And I really wanted to just address it with a sense of humor. It's a joke, because I think humor is a great way to have people think about things differently. And in order for things to improve, we have to think about them differently. And so this was one way that I thought would be kind of fun to open up that conversation and say, here's what we know works for. These 6 intimacy skills are really effective in making women feel desired and cherished and adored for life. And marriage counseling isn't one of them. That system is actually kind of counter to the things that are effective, unfortunately. So I'm mad about it, but I wanted people to be able to laugh about it and just go, oh, and it's been hilarious in a way that the reaction to that title, I thought there might be some controversy and blowback, and most of the time wherever I go and say that name, people go, oh yeah, we went to marriage counseling, that didn't work. So the sentiment was really out there already, so I wasn't telling them anything they didn't know.
Yeah, I guess, because you would look at this and it looks like a very controversial title, you're like, wow, okay, well, there's a story just behind the title itself, and, to really kind of see what the reality is, it's interesting. So that really tells me you're really on the leading edge of, understanding a new way of doing things. Just because things have always been done one way doesn't mean that they should be. And that should be the way that they do things,
Right. Yeah, I absolutely. I think in retrospect, too, I did sort of look back and go, wow, we're using, marriage counseling sort of based on Jung and Freud. I'm not using a computer from that era, or a car, or there's a lot of modern technology. Things have evolved a little bit since then. So a lot of it does seem just kind of out of date, maybe. So so that's why it's some modern day secrets. I think, and they really do feel like secrets, big secrets, in that I felt like I looked high and low and didn't find this information until I did my own research with women that had long, happy marriages, and just kind of interviewed them and asked them what their strategies were. And I have to tell you, Marianne, nothing that they told me made any sense to me at that time. They would say, I remember one woman was like, oh, well, I try never to criticize my husband, no matter how much it seems like he deserves it. And I was like, have you got anything else? Not going to do that. I don't even know how to do that. So.
Okay, your input is totally useless. Let's move on to the next happy.
Yeah, exactly. I don't even know what you mean. Let's go, Brendo.
Yeah, I need somebody to translate that, right?
Yeah, exactly. I remember another woman. It's funny, I'm giving examples of the ones that I did end up taking and implementing. But another woman said, for me, it's been really great. My husband handles all of our finances. We have, joint accounts, and he pays the bills and puts away savings or whatever, and I don't have to worry about it. And that's been great. And I was like, oh, that is not going to happen. I'm a feminist, and I know that, that's you have to keep your own money or whatever. Anyway, and of course, I did end up trying all the things they suggested in my desperation, and wow, the miracle was on the other side of running through the waterfall of fear that I felt in being that vulnerable.
Well,
and of course, that's where the intimacy comes too.
Mm. And that's kind of where everything is on the other side of fear anyway, but that's, I mean, like, I've owned my own business for quite some time, and, from what I see here and what I've read, looking at your website and stuff, there's a lot of type A women personalities out there, but we've had to kind of take that role. We're in the workplace doing our things, is this why, like, traditional marriage counselors might not be what works anymore because the rules of engagement have kind of changed, but you've actually found a recipe that says, hey, you know what, you might be type A at work, but you don't have to be at the home. You can come home and these are the things that will work to make a relationship work.
That you raise a really good point, Marianne, because I think that was a big emphasis for me growing up, was I knew I had to get my education and have a career and be successful, and I spent a lot of time training for that and learning and trying to focus on that. And so you learn how to manage your staff or your projects and things like that. And the problem is that husbands and boyfriends don't like to be managed. So if you're using the same techniques at work that you're using in your relationship, you are not going to get good results. And it makes sense because the goals are really different. Like at home, I want him to tell me I'm beautiful and make bedroom eyes at me, and I want to laugh together and hold hands and just have nice talks and things like that. And at work, I want to improve the bottom line, or maybe, people want to get a raise, or they want a promotion. They want to, you want to complete your projects. So it's really such a different arena. And of course, if you don't have any training in one arena, it's just an interesting expectation, right? Like everyone's going to have a relationship. I kind of don't understand why intimacy skills aren't taught in every school, but there was no relationships 101 where I went to school. I mean, I don't know. Was there where you went to school?
No, they were teaching how to do sewing, and that was a complete waste of time on me. So.
I learned sewing in school too. I think I was interested in it at the time, but yeah, I was doing it a long time. So, and we learned calculus and stuff too, right? But not relationships. So for me, I just have a big passion to make sure that every woman who really wants to have an intimate, passionate, peaceful relationship gets the skills, gets the information that she needs to have that happen, because it is really eye-opening, and I get letters all the time like, oh my gosh, you saved my marriage, and I never thought of it this way, this blew my mind, I laughed, I cried, and I learned how to respect my husband, and now the playfulness is back, the passion is back. So it's really clear to me, like there's just an information gap that women who don't have the 6 intimacy skills, I mean, some people luck into it, or maybe they have a role model, a mom or a grandmother who kind of naturally does some of it. But most of us came from broken homes. So now, by definition, we're mostly following failed recipes. So that's the mission I'm on, is really to end world divorce through getting this information out there.
Well, and that's fabulous. And I, from reading your book, I mean, it's fabulous for people who are married, but if someone's in a relationship as well, I mean, this is very useful information, so you're not setting yourself up, later on,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I always wished I'd had the intimacy skills from before I was married, like from dating. And we actually we have one of my previous books is called The Surrendered Single, and it's how to attract and marry the man that's right for you, because the skills are always going to be the same that create intimacy, whether you're single, whether you're a girlfriend, whether you're a wife. There's a little bit of variation in the application, of course, but you're not going to surrender finances maybe before you're married, but the basic principles of intimacy are constant. So it's great to have them all laid out, and just, I love the part where I know when I'm doing them and I know when I'm not. I don't do them perfectly, but I know when I'm not doing them, and I know what to do. I know how to clean it up. I know how to get myself back in the right spot. For instance, I'll tell you a quick story. I was, a while ago, I was traveling across the country to speak, and I kind of messed up on the return flight. Like I had to get up really early, and I was sleep deprived, didn't eat right. And by the time I arrived back home, my husband was picking me up at the airport, and I was just I was an over-hungry, overtired mess of a person, not a pleasant person, like a toothache of a person at this point. And I remember telling him, like, don't circle the airport again. I'll be right out, like on the cell phone. And there's no sign of my bags. And it's not like you can do that at LAX. Like, you have to keep going. They make you keep going. So
they won't let you stop.
They won't let you stop, no. And then I get in the car, and I'm, like, picking on his driving, telling him where to go, and just terrible. I needed remedial self-care. And but I don't get that way very often now, and I think that kind of explains what happened next, which is my husband just looked at me, and he started laughing. He's like having this big old hearty laugh, like, and then he goes, "It's nice to see you too," like that. So I was totally busted. I'm like, oh God. And I knew I needed some self-care. And so that's the thing, it's like march yourself into bed and take a nap, or, it could be, call my sister or my friend. Usually sometimes it takes like two sisters and 3 friends and my husband to set me back right if I'm having a bad day. So just knowing that I used to think things were just as bad as I thought they were when I was out of sorts, and now I know it's like, okay, let's first get my tank filled up. Let me get my happiness prioritized so that I'm paying attention to that. I'm doing things that I love and fill me with joy, and then let's see how the world looks to me then, see how my marriage looks to me then. And gosh, it just works every time. Everything looks a lot better when I'm filled up and rested.
Well, and then I know we've been kind of talking about them as we're going, but for our listeners, so you developed the 6 intimacy skills that people can, it's in your book, and people can really take themselves from point A to point B and really how to get there, and so that way, maybe the bad hair days aren't, as often,
Exactly. It really is like a series of, someone called it a series of DIY hacks, like do-it-yourself marriage hacking. And I think that's true. Like, you really could read this book and just, and people say they get results within about 2 weeks. Some people get results on the first day, which I love, but I think about 2 weeks is really kind of a reasonable time frame to feel like, and here's what they consistently say, I feel like I have a new husband, or I feel like I have a new boyfriend. And of course, he's not the one who changed, right? You are. And then he responded to you differently. Like, he doesn't even know you're reading this book. So it was obviously you. And that was another one of the big eye-openers for me, was finding out that women are the keepers of the relationships, that we really have more power to set the culture in our relationships, to make them happy and playful and fun, or make them stressful, intense, and distant, if that's, we have those options. And it's like Spider-Man said, with great power comes great responsibility. So I think we have a responsibility to learn these skills and really make those changes, because it's really easy to get sidetracked and focused on all the things he's doing wrong and he's not doing, or that annoy you. And the truth is, there's no power in that, but there's tremendous empowerment in focusing on the things that you can control, which is yourself, your attitude, your happiness level, the things you're doing to take care of yourself. Makes all the difference.
Yeah, and that's such a big deal, because, I mean, you're right, and I have a lot of married friends, and they're, over the course of, just life, I've met a lot of people who have said, if I could just make him do this, or, or handle, like pick up after himself, or be more loving or more connected. And the thing is that, it really is an inside job, because if those things are bugging us, there's something in us that we've got to like readjust then and say, well, wait a minute,
Yeah.
It's not that big a deal.
Sometimes it's also just a matter of learning to express your desires. I call it expressing your desires in a way that inspires. Because what my old habit was, I would say, it was just a complaint, really. I would say, this kitchen is a disaster. This place is a mess, right? And I would want my husband, in my mind, I'm thinking, he should jump up and start cleaning because I've said this now. And, of course, that never worked. Husbands can't even hear you when you're complaining, right? If I could say, John, this kitchen's a mess, and he would hear, John, blah, 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 blah. You know, it doesn't even really register for them. But so then finally I learned to express my desires instead of my complaints. So under every complaint is a lazy desire. So you can kind of flip it upside down and find that desire. And, of course, my desire would be to have a clean kitchen. So I said that. I said I would love a clean kitchen. And it wasn't, I'd love for you to clean the kitchen or you should clean the kitchen or it was just just an end result. So I wasn't attached to how it would happen. That's what I wanted. And sure enough, he got up and did the dishes right then. So husbands really want us to be happy, and as soon as they find out what that desire is, they see an opportunity to please us. We also have to be pleasable, by which I mean you cannot be committed to that miserable scowling like I was for so long, unfortunately, the martyrdom syndrome. If they don't think they have a chance of pleasing you, then they're not going to probably knock themselves out to do anything because it's kind of hopeless from the start. But anyway, so it was great because he started doing the dishes, and that's been well over a decade, and he's been doing them ever since. I don't do any dishes at my house anymore, just from learning to express my desires. It's a pretty powerful practice.
We're going to pause here for a quick break. We've been talking with relationship expert Laura Doyle. We'll be right back in a few minutes.
In 2012, after returning home from Iraq and Afghanistan, Sean Gobin hiked over 2,000 miles of the Appalachian Trail. Recognizing the therapeutic effects of long-distance hiking, Sean founded Warrior Expeditions, a veteran nonprofit therapy program that supports veterans transitioning from their military service by hiking America's national scenic trails. Equipment and supplies are provided as well as assistance with job placement. For more info or to help support these veterans, visit warriorexpeditions.org.
Internationally recognized and award-winning author Judy Goodman works and teaches outside the box of limited thinking. Working with people from every walk of life, her goal is to empower you to be the best you can be, no matter what the challenge is. Born with the gift of seeing beyond our normal vision, she has an extraordinary gift of working with every challenge. Teaching beyond conventional wisdom, her work is described as life-changing. Visit judygoodman.com. That's judygoodman.com.
Have you ever had the sense that your thoughts might actually be doing something? Ancient secrets of manifesting have been masterfully revealed in the award-winning book Manifesting 1-2-3 by Ken Elliott. For the first time, the author's experiences and stories in this book describe exactly how your thoughts can create anything. You've been doing this all your life, but it's never been fully explained for you until now. Visit manifesting123.com for more information today. Manifesting123.com.
Are you an author looking for publicity for your book? If you're self-published or have worked through a traditional publisher, Marianne Pestana can help you get the media attention you require. Contact Marianne Pestana, literary publicist and host of Moments with Marianne, to create a winning plan of action. Marianne has helped authors become bestsellers and has received highly acclaimed media attention for her clients. Some of her work has received attention from ABC, NBC, CNN, CBS, Fox, and PBS, in addition to print and radio. She's a specialist in utilizing social media and her list of exclusive contacts to further the reach of your work. Contact MariannePestana.com to discuss the future of your work today. Ben Wexler is a gifted leadership development and strategy consultant for professionals who want to transform their organizations and careers. Through a uniquely personalized set of processes, participants discover their unique knowledge, how to leverage that knowledge and experience, and then put it all together with a global strategy. You're more valuable, your organization is more valuable, and the change is viral. Contact Ben at 630-881-1074. 630-881-1074.
Welcome back to Moments with Marianne. We're here with my very special guest, Laura Doyle. So, Laura, I know guys like to be problem solvers, and I really liked how you approach asking for what it is that you want in the last segment and doing that without blame. I thought it was really perfectly stated, and it really allows guys to solve problems.
They do. It's almost like the North Star. Our desires are the North Star, because if she's expressing, like, I want a bigger house, or I want to live closer to my family, or I want a new car, those become his marching orders, and he really starts, figuring out, okay, how am I going to make that happen? And in fact, being in this position as a relationship coach for all these years and talking to women all over the world, we're in 17 languages in 28 countries with my relationship coaching practice, you find out that men are the same everywhere. So, and I've asked thousands of men, like, how important is it to you that your wife is happy? And they all say the same thing. They'll say, oh, it's the most important thing, or it's everything. Or I remember a guy in the UK said it's imperative that she's happy. And that's how important it is to them.
Yeah.
And we lose sight of that, because a lot of women will say, well, not my husband. My husband is different. But a lot of times he has been responding to kind of been in a defensive mode because he doesn't feel respected, he feels controlled, and she doesn't even realize that she's being disrespectful or controlling. She's got no concept of that. And so it's been kind of fun. It's fun to have, sometimes I'll describe all the disrespectful things and controlling things that I've done. I have my top 10 ways to control your husband. None of them work. But when I go through them, I get a lot of laughs, because women are like, oh, my gosh, I totally do that, too. It could be
They're probably going, okay, check. I do all these things.
Check. Right.
It's
and they're like,
not working.
Yeah, but I had to do it, because otherwise he wouldn't wear sunscreen, and he's already had skin cancer, and it's like, actually, he's going to want to live longer if you treat him respectfully and don't be his smother mother. And that's what we see, again and again, is that they step up and take responsibility. And it's just like that old perfume commercial. If you want him to be more of a man, try being more of a woman. And they love seeing that softer side of us, right? The vulnerable side, the side that is just focused on his strengths instead of focused on his weaknesses.
Yeah, well, and just for any relationship, what great advice, because, people do want to be complimented and appreciated, and, and it's just like your book really is kind of like a little roadmap, for relationships in general too, because you're working with, let's say you've got people that you're working with, and it doesn't mean you have to be all sweet and lovey-dovey, but, people appreciate being, they appreciate being respected. They, a lot of people are very motivated by getting compliments, that's what actually motivates them to move forward and to do things better. And so it's kind of a win-win all the way around when we do that inside job and start working on us,
Yeah. It was an astonishing gateway. Trying to fix my broken marriage was such a wonderful self-improvement program. I really feel like I've become my best Laura, because I don't hear myself shrieking. I don't rage anymore. I used to rage. I had a horrible problem with rage, actually, and it was even from before we were married. I remember one time, my poor unsuspecting husband, he was just my boyfriend at the time, but he took me on a romantic getaway, Hawaii. And so the first day we were there, he's like, I'm thinking, oh, great, we're going to go to the beach. I can't wait to go to the beach. And So we get up. I go, hey, what do you want to do today? I don't say I want to go to the beach, by the way. I just say, what do you want to do today? He goes, well, I think it'd be fun to go look at a volcano. And I'm like, oh, okay, all right. And then I thought, well, it's my new boyfriend. I want to be close. I don't want there to be any disagreement or distance. So I'm just going to suck it up and go to the volcano to make him happy. And so we're driving along in the rental car, and you can't see the volcano. All you see are the little rocks on the side of the road. And it's kind of a hot day. And anyway, I just remember I started thinking, like, wow, he didn't even ask me what I wanted to do. Like, right, we could be at the beach right now. Like, this is a big waste of time. He kind of noticed. He's like, hey, is everything okay? You know, I'm like, and that's when I totally lost it. I was like, did you think this would be fun? Because I think it's really stupid. You can't even see a stupid volcano. We could be at the beach right now. You didn't even ask me what I wanted to do. But it was like more unpleasant than that. Like, that's just like the mild version of what responded. And poor guy, you know, like last year he took his girlfriend on a romantic trip to Hawaii. But and he was like, oh, if I'd known you wanted to go to the beach, we would have gone. And he was like, were you going to wear your bikini? You know, and that would have been great. And he still did take me to the beach, but I just had this horrible hangover afterwards. Like, I just kept like asking him, like, do you still like me? You know, are we going to be okay? And because I knew if I continued to act like that, you know, I was going to drive him away. I was going to be alone. But I had no concept. You know, I feel sad for the previous version of Laura who didn't have any idea how to express her desires. Right? All I had to say was, I would love to go to the beach. And he doesn't care about because they want us to be happy so much, like it wouldn't have been a conflict. I can pretty much guarantee that. And in my mind it would have been, but anyway, I just didn't have any knowledge or understanding at that point. And it's just so much nicer to be able to say up front, to honor my own desires. And even, you know, Mick Jagger said it best, you can't always get what you want. But I feel like there's such a dignity in being able to express them and advocate for my own desires that was totally missing in the beginning.
Well, and I've heard that before, that's like a number one cause, you know, when women start to look at possibilities of divorces because they don't feel appreciated and they don't feel like they're being fulfilled. You know, their desires aren't being fulfilled, you know, so they're thinking, well, why bother, you know, why bother doing this?
Yeah.
So, you know, but yeah, you're right. I mean, with that, you know, being able to voice what you want, although that trip was, that the way you explained that was just hysterical. But I mean, there's a lot of women that have done that, you know, where we've gone out and maybe not been able to deal with things quite so well. And, you know, having a bad hair day, we're trying to voice our opinion or whatever it may be. And then afterwards get into that insecurity part, which, you know, no guy likes that, you know. So.
Yeah, it's really true. I mean, I think the other piece that was super difficult for me was I was very defended, I would say. I mean, I thought it was really important to be strong and like efficient, and those were kind of my values. And independent was a big one, right? I was really raised to be independent, and gosh, it's just not that appealing to me at all anymore. Now I really want to be interdependent with my husband. I really want is a priority for me. But because I thought that way, I think one of the hardest things for me to be was vulnerable with my husband, and yet that is one of the things he loves the most about me. And I see this with my clients too, like you're saying, women, you know, part of what has them get divorced is just feeling like it's so hopeless because their needs are not getting met. And I just remember I had this one woman who, she was like, well, I think the skills are great, but, you know, they don't work forever. I mean, they've helped me a lot, but they haven't really made my marriage, you know, it hasn't come back really. And she and her husband had been estranged in the same house for 10 years, just living like awkward roommates, basically raising 5 kids. Oh. And I said, well, you know, do you want to have your marriage back? And she was like, well, I don't know. You know, it's not up to me. And I was like, you know, that wasn't my question. Like, I want to know what your desires are, because desire is the seed of feminine power, really. It's like the more we're in touch with and honoring that desire, I mean, we can move mountains without moving a muscle if we know what we want and we can express it cleanly and clearly, no manipulation or control or criticism. And so finally I got her down to it. She was like, yeah, I would, but, I don't know if that's going to happen. It's kind of the ball's in his court. He's the one that would have to, do something. And what I said to her was like, well, how would it be for you to tell your husband that you miss him? Because I think that might be important information for him. Like maybe the ball's not in his court. Maybe he needs to know that you'd like to have him back. And she was like, oh, yeah, no, I'm not going to say that, And I was like, why not? And she was like, because I'm a chicken and I don't want to, it's just too scary. It felt really, really vulnerable. And I get that. And so I was starting to go down like, well, you know what's best for you. Maybe you don't want to do that. And she goes, oh, I know. I'll write him. Can I write him a note? Says I miss you. And I was like, that is a start, right? It's vulnerable, but she didn't feel like it was as risky as saying it to him in person. So she wrote him this note, and at first, like the only evidence that she had of that anything was going to get better was he smiled at her for the first time. Like they're passing in the hall, and he smiles at her, and she was like, "Whoa, what's that about?" But it was the beginning of a slow dance of reconciliation to where she said, "Oh my gosh," she was like, "We're so physically affectionate now. He's moved back into the bedroom," and she said, in fact, we're grossing out the kids. The kids are like, "Oh, Mom, Dad, why do you have to always be kissing like that?" Which is kind of what everybody dreams of, right? We all want a relationship that grosses out our kids. And anyway, she was saying, it was around Christmas. She was like, I can't wait to stand under the mistletoe this year because it's all back. Like she just had, and so she's been using 5 of the skills, right? This 6th one, this vulnerability piece was missing. And when she brought that, the whole thing really came back in spades and became vibrant and exhilarating again. And, I love to share these stories about the afters, right? Because I think women that are in marriages that are sexless, that are really broken, and I was in a sexless marriage myself, and one of the things that I'm unspeakably grateful for, like we were at a breakfast cafe not too long ago, and I'm just kind of watching the people go by, and John, my husband John, just says, "Hey, don't move," and he grabs his phone, starts taking pictures of me like I'm a supermodel. We've been married 26 years, right? All of a sudden he's like, "Wow, you're so beautiful," and then he hands me his phone and says, "Look how beautiful you are." And I start looking at the pictures, and it's all pictures. It's like the Laura channel in there, right? There's Laura in the kitchen, Laura in the backyard, Laura working on her work on her laptop, and it's just amazing to feel so adored every single day. It's just there's so much inner strength in it, and this is the same guy that I almost threw out because I thought he was the wrong man. I'd made a mistake.
Mm-hmm. That's absolutely beautiful. Just getting to that place where that kind of a relationship is possible. And I think it gives a lot of women encouragement that, hey, things don't have to be, kind of humdrum, you can actually, it could be this fabulous relationship where, the husband and wife both adore each other,
Yeah. In fact, I would go so far as to say, Marianne, that there's really no such thing as a kind of a middle of the road marriage or like a kind of just an average marriage. Like it's either where you're both suffering because she doesn't have the skills, unfortunately, and things are not happy for either one of you, or it's the other side where it's like, gosh, the sex is great and you're getting help with the things that you need done, right? Like just getting the baby's crib like out to the garage, or those little tasks, right? Getting the family room painted, or help with the dishes, or dressing the kids, or bathing the kids, or whatever. It all goes together. So a lot of times I think people think, well, it's just too hopeless. All these things are wrong. One of my messages is like, yes, and all the things become right when you are using the skills. So there's really, as far as I know, there's no middle ground marriage where it's just like, well, it's okay. It's either you're both suffering or you're both feeling empowered, and there's a lot of inner strength and confidence that relationship provides. And that's what I want for every woman. It's our birthright as women to feel desired and to feel cherished, and also to get that help, right? To get that special treatment that our husbands actually really want to give us, like their jacket when it's cold, or he'll go get the car when it's raining, or little things, opening doors, or or big things, supporting the whole family so she can stay home, or there's just so many. If we're willing to receive those things, there's so many things that they want to give us, and there's just kind of no end to the cherishing that they'll do.
Well, and then it ends up working both ways. So they get what they need. The gentlemen, the husbands get what they need in order to feel fulfilled in, like, hey, I'm really happy in my relationship. I feel like things are great. Good job, attaboy, kind of thing, and then the wives are very happy because there's that shift that's taken place, and now they're able to be in with their partners in a completely different way than they ever dreamed possible.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
This is like this is like the master's course for marriage, without having to get the PhD. So.
Yeah. In fact, in some ways, I'm so grateful that I didn't go down the path, because I was, I really was obviously very interested in relationships and figuring them out for my own, because I was in so much pain. And in some ways, I'm just glad I didn't go down that traditional path of maybe getting some kind of psychology degree or master's degree, because it really turned out that the answers I was seeking weren't in that traditional arena, right? I had to kind of go think outside the box to find the answers that I needed. And so, I mean, one of the questions I get a lot of people will be like, well, what are your credentials? Where's your MFT or psychology, whatever? And, a lot of people do take kind of an academic approach to marriage. They've studied it in books and classrooms, and this was done with real women in the trenches. There's hundreds of thousands of women now have used the intimacy skills in all these languages, 17 languages in 28 countries, to revitalize their relationships. So we know that this works, and that's the part that I care about. It's like, I want to get the information from somebody who's been on the road ahead of me and knows from personal experience. I really value that now, and it wasn't obvious to me when I was younger that was going to be so significant, but it really has been.
Yeah, well, you can't. I agree with you 100%. I think too often, I mean, it's sometimes it's important to look for the alphabet soup behind the name, but life experience and then being able to have a track record of success. Now, that says a lot. I mean, you can be a counselor and maybe not have traveled the path that people are coming to you with different issues or questions or concerns. And so how are you going to take somebody someplace you've never been?
That's right.
That typically
That's
does
right.
not work.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. It doesn't. I mean, and that's one of the things I'm so proud of about my coaching organization is every single coach that is here has been in a struggling marriage and has transformed that marriage. Like she's been, and it's all degrees, right? I have women that were separated and had been talking to the divorce attorney, and when the husband was having an affair. And I have ones where they were like, well, we weren't going to get divorced, but man, the sizzle was gone, right? There just wasn't much. There wasn't much excitement in the marriage. It was just a grind. And so from every different starting point, I'm thinking of one in particular where she says, yeah, the sizzle was gone. And now she's, her husband brags about her. He gets up and speaks about what an amazing wife she is whenever he gets the chance. And one of the stories I love that they tell is that when she was first learning how to be respectful, it was a real eye opener. She was like, "Oh my gosh, I have been disrespectful. That wasn't what I meant. I didn't intend to be disrespectful to my husband. I just didn't see that I was doing that." And so she started apologizing to him for being disrespectful. It's one of the 6 intimacy skills. And so at first she was having to apologize a lot. She was saying a lot of things that were disrespectful, and she'd say something and she'd say, oh, I apologize for being disrespectful when I told you you've got to go easy on the kids, or, oh, I apologize for being disrespectful when I told you how to park the car. And he finally turned to her and said, you don't have to apologize for every little thing every time you're disrespectful. She kind of paused and she was like, it's no longer okay with me to be disrespectful to you. You're my husband, and I think you deserve my respect. And so for me, this is my reminder to me that's my standard for myself. I do respect you. And he got like a little something in his eye right at that moment. Getting that kind of, yeah. And, he brags about her every chance he gets.
Oh, my goodness. Well, and it ends up being, I kind of see, how in a bigger scope this also, it's respect about the relationship, about the marriage. So you respect your husband, and it's really respecting the bond and relationship that you have together.
Well, it is, and what's hilarious and ironic about life is sometimes we're giving more respect to a stranger in a waiting room than we are to the person we're most familiar with, the person we know best in the world. There's that expression, familiarity breeds contempt, and I think there's some cause for that expression. I've experienced it myself. And so sometimes it feels like it takes a little more effort to be respectful. And the truth is that it feels really unpleasant. It feels all hairy and dirty to me now when I'm disrespectful or controlling. Control is always disrespectful, and there's other ways too. Like I can, give them the look, or I could ask a leading question like, is that what you're gonna wear? It's like totally disrespectful. And I used to, that was my first stop. I thought, okay, I'm gonna not be controlling. I'll just ask questions. And of course, it was no better, right? So my first stop was no improvement at all. But now it's like it's kind of the opposite. Like I know it instantly when I'm traveling into John was driving me to a radio show I was going to be on. I've been on it many times, and we've both been there many times. And somehow on the way there, I was like, oh, wait, you're going to turn left here? Right? Like this total do as I say kind of voice. And we have this totally different culture in our relationship now where that's not part of it. So he didn't say anything. He just looked at me, he just raised his eyebrow a little bit, and I was totally busted again. And I was like, okay, I'm going to, I'm going to this radio show to tell women to stop controlling their husbands. So I think I'm going to roll down the window and let some of the hypocrisy out of the car here.
Well, do you know what?
I can't get away with anything anymore.
I get it though, because I grew up and it was like being successful in business was a big thing, and sometimes it's really hard to leave that hat at work and not be that type A personality when you're at home. So I totally get it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Although it's interesting because the further I go, so now I have this international coaching organization. So but I do find actually it's not helpful for me to say, are you going to turn left here in my business either? It really doesn't work there either. So it's actually been helpful to have the intimacy skills to be able to be respectful to the people I work alongside with, and I'm actually really aware that I get a much better outcome from everyone around me. It has affected all my relationships. It's affected my relationship with my sisters and my friends and my parents to learn these skills, because you end up, I want intimacy in all my relationships, not just my romantic relationship. In my romantic relationship, I want intimacy plus sex, and that's what differentiates that relationship from every other relationship. Oh, yeah. But in my friendships, I still want the emotional safety that is needed for intimacy to thrive, and so I got to bring that there too. But and also in my business, I'm gonna, I get better results when people feel inspired instead of berated. It's, there's no comparison.
No, definitely not. I agree with you 100%. And just like from my personal experience, when I first got in business, the A personality got a little carried away because I had to be assertive, it was somewhat aggressive, and so in being in that place, it wasn't really a natural fit for me. I had to show up with this hat on, and it's so nice not to be able to do that, to live in more of a heart-centered work environment, that I created. So it's like, okay, great, I get to show up, and and the relationships I have are different, and and I really appreciate your book because it really goes over not just, again, in marriage relationships, but like all relationships, and then when we change ourselves and the people around us, they shift and adjust. And that's why you're having such great relationships with just about everyone you know.
Yeah, it's really true. In fact, one of the magical phrases that we use around here as part of the 6 intimacy skills that I find, I mean, I use it with absolutely everyone now, my clients, the people I work with, my sisters, everybody, and it really just goes a long way towards creating emotional safety and having people open up and really tell me how they're feeling and what they're thinking about is just these 3 magical words, Marianne, and that is, I hear you.
Mm-hmm.
I hear you. So it's fantastically neutral, right? It's like I used to think that, like, if my husband or anybody else was saying something, that meant it was up to me to, like, either agree with it or disagree with it or comment on it in some way. And it just isn't true. We all have a deep need to be heard and understood. And I hear you does that. It says, I'm bearing witness to what you're saying. What you're saying matters. It's important. And I don't necessarily agree with you. I don't necessarily disagree with you. I'm just here listening. And wow, it's amazing the conversations I've gotten, stuff out of my niece and nephew, that I never imagined by just kind of leaving a wide space and using that little magical phrase that really enhances the intimacy.
Well, and a lot of times people just want to be heard, so that's just perfect, because they show up and like, oh, okay, now everything's fine.
Yeah. And sometimes it's like a flight of fancy too, right? We all kind of think out loud. My husband was like, years ago, I remember he was like, we should put a second story on the house, right? And I was thinking like, oh my gosh, it's going to be so dusty and noisy and, no way. And I would say, no, I don't think that's a good idea, right? And so I just like shut him down. And then he would have to defend it. He'd be like, well, we'd have a view of blah, 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 whatever. And I was like, no, I don't like that idea, right? And I mean, I remember at the time, like, we had not, like, 2 nickels to rub together. There was no way we were about to put a second story on the house. Like, we didn't have the money. It wasn't like the architect was coming over that day to draw the plans. It's just a conversation. It's just like talking. Yeah. And now it's so easy, he'll say, another time I remember he was like, we should just sell everything and go live on an alpaca farm or get an alpaca farm or whatever. And I remember going like, I hear ya. Like, oh, okay, whatever. Like, I knew it was just, he didn't mean anything. He's just talking. And we all deserve the space to just kind of try out our ideas out loud. There's nothing wrong with it. I didn't agree or disagree. I just listened to the alpaca farm idea. Didn't kill me. We all lived. And the intimacy was preserved, and that's something I like.
Oh, definitely. You lived through the alpacas, So.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we're at the end of our time here today. I'd like to thank Laura for taking the time to be here with us. If you'd like to visit her website, please go to lauradoyle.org. And for all of our listeners tuning in today, thank you so much. And remember, make every moment count.
Join us next time for Moments with Marianne, when host Marianne Pestana brings another inspirational gifted leader to help us grow. Tune in every second Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time for Moments with Marianne, when the Dream Vision 7 radio network is at 1510 a.m. Boston. Or catch Moments with Marianne every Thursday and Friday at 5 p.m. and 5 a.m. Eastern Time by going to dreamvision7radio.com. To learn how Marianne started her business from the ground up, visit mariannepestana.com. Don't miss this, and remember, make every moment count.